All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about Jaron Boots Ennis and why I believe that by 2028, if not 2029, we're going to be looking at a two-division undisputed world champion. I think that's a very bold prediction, but I see a way that Jaron Boots Ennis doesn't just become undisputed super welter, but he runs through the middleweight division. And we're going to talk about why. First of all, super welter, he's already halfway there. He's already halfway there in the super welterweight division, took 2 belts off Xander Zayas, and now he's eyeing taking a 3rd belt off Josh Kelly later this year. So, providing he gets that fight with Josh Kelly, I do believe he beats Josh Kelly. I think Jaron Boots Ennis doesn't just beat Josh Kelly. I think he beats him well. I think we're looking at a wide UD, if not a stoppage victory. And the reason I say that is I have nothing against Josh Kelly. I just think Josh Kelly, his biggest skill is his speed and his dynamism. But the problem with that is it almost runs empty after about 6 rounds. He might be, close to the boxing equivalent of a Conor McGregor. You can bank on a 5-round fight for Conor McGregor. By about 2.5 rounds in, he is absolutely cooked. And we've seen that for Josh Kelly. He looked so good in the opening few rounds against Barkram, gets the knockdown second half of the fight. Barkram makes his way into the fight, drops Josh Kelly, ends up very, very close decision. Fast forward to his first title defense against Keegan Ajako. Almost the same thing once again. Josh Kelly looks untouchable for the first half of the fight, slows down, and Keegan Ajako is able to make his way into the fight and bust Josh Kelly's face open a little bit. So there is a clear problem there for Josh Kelly, and I think when your best sort of skill set is that fact that you are speedy, you are skillful, you are dynamic, but you're coming up against someone like Jaron Boots Ennis, who is a big hitter and has that speed and has that athleticism, I think Jaron Boots Ennis would be able to close that distance and land the punches, and if not, get a wide unanimous decision over Josh Kelly by just outworking him and landing the clinical punches. I think he can stop Josh Kelly. So that would put Jaron Boots Ennis with 3 belts, leaving only 1 belt left, and that is Sebastian Fundora's. Now, the problem I have with Sebastian Fundora is, number one, it is a tough fight. It's a tougher fight than the Josh Kelly one. Just stylistically, the fact that the guy stands 6'6", 6'7", makes him an absolute nightmare in the division anyway. But the biggest problem I have with Sebastian Fundora is he ducks the fights. All right, the biggest problem I see with that is, can Jaron Boots Ennis actually get that fight made? Because since we've seen Sebastian Fundora get the belts, he's taken the easy route. All right, he gets the belts off the back of a loss. Don't forget, he got knocked out by Brian Mendoza, gets on a week's notice, takes on Tim Tszyu. Credit to him, he does do well to take the belts off Tim Tszyu. But since then, he's chosen to take on Chordell Booker, take on a broken Tim Tszyu in a rematch, and take on little Keith Thurman that was inactive for 5 years and is a welterweighter. All right, he's now won a mandatory against Hydrabej. You can't do much about that, but his 3 choices, he chose easy fights. And on top of that, he had an opportunity to take a fight with Xander Zayas, and instead of taking the fight with Xander, he decided to vacate the belts and say, no, I'm going to take on Tim Tszyu instead. So for me, the biggest problem with Sebastian Fundora is actually getting that fight. If he gets the fight, it is a tough fight, but I actually think for Jaron Boots Ennis, the tougher fight's Virgil Ortiz than it is for Sebastian Fundora. I actually think Virgil Ortiz would beat Sebastian Fundora if he got the opportunity. So I'd still back Jaron Boots Ennis to take the belts off Sebastian Fundora. Like I said, we saw Sebastian Fundora get stopped from Brian Mendoza. The fact is, he was up against the Tim Tszyu in that first fight. Tim Tszyu couldn't see for the best part of 9 rounds, and he gets a split decision. Right? Like, that's how close that first fight was. So I have problems with Sebastian Fundora. I think he, is very much overrated, but only time will tell. If he takes that fight, we'll actually see how good Sebastian Fundora is or how good Jaron Boots Ennis is. Providing he gets that fight, I believe he beats Sebastian Fundora. That is one division conquered. Move up to middleweight. Now, I spoke yesterday in a short about my feelings about the middleweight division. Middleweight has been dead for quite some time. It is far from a great division. I mean, middleweight, we've seen some of the greatest fighters come through middleweight. I mean, we've seen recently GGG, Canelo Alvarez, go back Bernard Hopkins, go back even further, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, the greatest middleweighter of all time. It's been a great division, but recently it has been a terrible, terrible division. I do think we're going for a bit of a resurgence in the division. I think there's some new faces, new names. Erislandy Lara, 43 years of age. I believe he retires soon. Carlos Adames has spoken numerous times about moving up. I do believe he's been handed a mandatory, which might prompt him moving up, because I think he wanted a money fight in this division, but that's been blocked. If he doesn't want to take this mandatory and defend his belt, he's better off just moving up and trying to get a big money fight up there. And then we've seen new champions. We've seen Denzel Bentley take over from Yanibek Al-Kanali. Yanibek Al-Kanali, his belt's pretty much taken off him through, we know what's happening with Yanibek Al-Kanali. I think the WBO one, he might have actually vacated. It might have been the IBF one that was taken off him. Either way, no longer in this division, making a move up, along with the ban with the substances that's going on. Not really sure what's happening behind the scenes for Yanibek Al-Kanali, but we have a new champion in Denzel Bentley. And most recently of this weekend, Aaron McKenna taking the belts when he took on Etanoza Olaha. So two new champions, two champions that I believe won't be in the division much longer. We also have Xander Zayas, former world champion, making the move up. Tim Tszyu, former world champion, now 3 fights into this division. I think we have Amari Jones. Amari Jones is probably the most promising youngster within the division. 17 victories, 15 knockouts. Like, Amari Jones looks the real deal, and it sounds like he might get a fight with Aaron McKenna. That will really prove how much of the real deal he is. I don't think Amari Jones has really been tested, but in a division like middleweight, the options are very far and few in between. They have, like, who would you give Amari Jones to really test him apart from a world champion? The depth is just not there. And the last name that's probably mentionable is Yonli Hernandez. If you don't know who Yonli Hernandez is, well, you'll become very familiar with him because he does fight on the Rolly Romero versus Teofimo Lopez card. He is 10 victories, 9 knockouts. Cuban fighter, very, very good amateur, 29 years of age. He's one to keep an eye on. So there are some fresh faces in this division, some former world champions making the move up, and some new champions taking over the division. But in saying all of that, saying how good that is to see some new faces in the middleweight division, did any of those names that I mentioned sound like names that would beat Jaron Boots Ennis? I think Jaron Boots Ennis would get even better with the step up. You know how big Jaron Boots Ennis is. I mean, you see him next to Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez, a middleweight to super middleweighter. He is a massive, massive dude. And I think the more steps up he takes, the more powerful he becomes, the better fighter that he does become. And we know for a fact that Xander Zayas won't beat him, but I know there's a few names there that Xander Zayas would beat. I think Xander Zayas beats Aaron McKenna. I know for a fact he would beat Denzel Bentley. Carlos Adames, I think with Carlos Adames and Erislandy Lara is at that age that I think any fight now, it's just going to be gone. Like 43 years of age, you're pretty much done in this sport. And I would believe that he should just retire in the short-term future. Carlos Adames, if he stays in this division, although he's crafty, right, and he's very, very talented, he's very, very skillful, he's a veteran of the sport, he knows how to fight different styles, I think it would be overwhelmed by the pressure and almost the power from Jaron Boots Ennis. I think on top of that, Carlos Adames is now at an age, and he's spoken numerous times about the fact that he struggles to get to this weight. I think he would jeopardize his own performance trying to shrink down to middleweight when you're taking on someone like Jaron Boots Ennis, who's just going to get better with that move up. So you put the benefit of the doubt in Jaron Boots Ennis. It's a tough fight, but I think Jaron Boots Ennis' physicality would overwhelm Carlos Adames. And then you're sort of saying, well, you're pretty much saying he beats everybody. Amari Jones is a little bit of an unknown. Amari Jones, I think, has all the talent in the world, but it's still right now for me in that prospect talent zone. I'd love to see him go in there, take on Aaron McKenna. Aaron McKenna looked okay. It was a good fight against Etanoza Olaha, but nobody watched that fight and was absolutely blown away. He was also a little bit dumbfounded with the speed and the power in the early few rounds against Etanoza. The later that fight went, Aaron McKenna grew into it and was much better, but early on, the speed and the power from Olaha was visible and it was causing McKenna some problems. And I wouldn't put Olaha in the same bracket as Jaron Boots Ennis. So, look, there are some names there, and there's some names I haven't even mentioned, but I don't think they're worth mentioning. Callum Walsh is a bit hit and miss. Shane Mosley Jr. as well. I think when you look at it and you say these names, Yonli Hernandez has a very, very good chance of becoming a world champion, and we can see how good he is at the professional game. Amari Jones, like I said, very, very much the same. The more fights he takes, the more experience he gets, the bigger fights he gets, we're going to see how good he becomes. But in terms of the guys here that are dead set, we know he beats Xander Zayas. We've seen it already. He beats Tim Tszyu. He beats Denzel Bentley. He beats Aaron McKenna. Carlos Adames is a tricky fight, but I think you'd give the favor to Jaron Boots Ennis and Erislandy Lara. Erislandy Lara, he's still got the power, but at 43 years of age, I don't think you could comfortably say that Erislandy Lara beats Jaron Boots Ennis. Let's be real here. So, apart from a few unknowns, I don't see anybody in this middleweight division that I would comfortably say beats Jaron Boots Ennis. I think Xander Zayas, you could argue that Xander Zayas might have the best chance. You could say that Xander Zayas beats most of the names on this list, as well as the fact that Xander Zayas is going to get better with that move up to middleweight. You know, he was struggling at super welter, as well as the experience that he's going to get from that loss against Jaron Boots Ennis. I mean, it's a very, very tough one. Amari Jones actually took on Xander Zayas, I believe, in the amateurs and lost. Not that that says much. I believe it was a points loss as well, so it was very, very close. That might have been back in 2017, 2018, so a very, very long time ago. But they have history. I'd love to see Amari Jones in a top-level fight, as well as Yonli Hernandez. Like I said, if you haven't seen him already, you're going to see him in the next few weeks. But I think, you know, providing he can get the fights, that's probably the biggest make or break of this prediction of him becoming undisputed by 2028. If Jaron Boots Ennis can get the fights, if he can line them up, if he can possibly, by the time he makes the move up to middleweight, have one of these champions unified, I think he can be like Thanos and start collecting these belts. And I believe he beats everybody. I think the toughest challenge, when you look at all the names that we've read through today, I think the toughest challenge will be for that WBC Super Welter. I think at the end of the day, that will probably be the one that gets him unstuck. Whether it's Virgil Ortiz, whether it's Sebastian Ventura, whoever he has to face for that WBC belt, I think that's the one will get him the most unstuck. I don't see him really being challenged by anything in the middleweight division right now. And it's a bit of a shame because, like I said, we're seeing so many new faces in the division, but I still believe we're so far away from a great division, aren't we? It's so odd why middleweight is such a poor division. The fact that it's sandwiched between two fucking unbelievable. Like, you look at the names at super welter, we've already listed most of them, and then you go through the names at super middle, Billy, Martinez, Canelo Alvarez, Beck the Bully, right? Like Jaime Munguia. There's so many names in that division, so many names in the super welterweight division, Hamza Shiraz as well at super middle, and yet the one in the middle, absolutely dead. It dumbfounds me, but I believe Jaron Boots Ennis, bold prediction, but I think by 2028, we could be looking at a guy that's undisputed at super welter and at very least unified in the middleweight division. But I'm banking on him becoming undisputed in two divisions by the end of 2028 and top 3 pound for pound. The only thing that will become a question will be, has he fought the names that provides him a number 1 pound for pound spot? That'll be the biggest question, because unfortunately, nobody in that middleweight division grants you a number 1 pound for pound spot. But hey, he's in the top 10 already. You become undisputed in 2 divisions. I think you got a call to say, I'm the number 1 dog. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you see the future of Jaron Boots Ennis going? Like I said, I think there's a path here for him to become undisputed in 2 divisions very, very quickly. And what fight do you think is the hardest for him? What do you think, the future of this middleweight division as well? I'd like to ask the comments as well. What do you think of this middleweight division? Who do you think is the best out of those names we ran through in the middleweight division? Who do you sort of say, all right, 1-2 years time, who might be the unified champion? Who is going to have, the number 1 spot in the middleweight division? Because it ain't the most glamorous right now, and it wouldn't surprise me if Xander Zayas takes it over. Like, subscribe. I'm out of here, guys. See ya.